Here at Extremely Strange, we offer our congratulations to the graduating class of 2024 as you complete a 4-year odyssey and look forward to your new journeys ahead. And to offer you some sage advice. Ghosts are real. Yes, I said that. Every college and university claims to have some type of haunting. These stories are passed down from upperclassmen to incoming freshmen, who then add their own flavor to it, and so it goes. Oftentimes, these tales are nothing more than parables, cautionary tales about knife-wielding maniacs who prey on students who wander out alone at night. It's just another way of saying, hey, don't be out by yourself after hours. What, your mother never told you not to venture into the woods or else the monster would get you? Yeah, mine either. But what is the most haunted university in the country? Scholars and frat boys have debated that for years. But there is one that bears some examination. And like having a chem class at 8 a.m. after a weekend of partying, this elective is extremely strange. In the mid to late 1800s, mental illness was becoming more acknowledged, if not totally understood, as a serious issue in a time where the government was taking steps in addressing a range of societal problems. In addressing the need for and design of mental health facilities, Dr. Thomas Kirkbride believed the keys for recovery lay with rest, personal hygiene, and reliability. Men and women would be attended to separately in their own wings with separate dining halls. This rational philosophy for treatment of the mentally ill, the Kirkbride Plan, laid the groundwork for future implementation of asylums. In Athens, Ohio, the former Athens Lunatic Asylum began construction in 1868 and opened its doors in early 1874. It was eventually renamed the Athens Hospital for the Insane. As did many others of its kind, Kirkbride Plan asylums were essentially confined communities, and for decades the hospital had livestock, farm fields, and gardens, an orchard, greenhouses, a dairy, a physical plant that generated steam heat, and a carriage shop. A large percentage of the facility maintenance was carried out by patients. The first patient of the asylum was a 14-year-old girl with epilepsy who was thought at the time to be possessed by a demon. Epilepsy was considered a major cause of insanity, and the first annual report lists 31 men and 19 women as ruled insane as a result of epilepsy. Ailments such as menopause, alcohol addiction, and tuberculosis were cause for enrollment in the hospital. For the female patients hospitalized during these first 3 years of the asylum's operation, the 3 leading causes of insanity were recorded as puerperal condition or postpartum depression, 51 women, change of life, 32 women, and menstrual derangements, 29 women. The second most common cause of insanity, as recorded in the first annual report, was intemperance and dissipation. In the hospital's first 3 years of operation, according to the annual report of 1876, 81 men and 1 woman were diagnosed as having their insanity caused by masturbation. Intemperance, or alcohol abuse, was also listed as a cause of insanity, as was general disobedience. The main building could accommodate up to 572 patients, which was twice the amount Kirkbride recommended, and at its peak, over 1,800 patients were receiving treatment, which totally compromised the intended method. The asylum produced a great deal of jobs for people living in the surrounding area, but the medical staff was often less than proficient. Most disturbing is the documentation of hydrotherapy, electroshock, lobotomy, and early psychotropic drugs, many of which have been discredited today as extremely inhumane treatment. The mental health care industry in the United States underwent a dramatic change by the 1950s. It was established that in a majority of cases, the mentally ill did not pose an inherent danger to their communities. Public awareness of procedures like electroshock therapy and lobotomies would come to be seen as cruel and sadistic. The availability of psychoactive drugs for the treatment of mental illnesses, as well as the increasing prevalence of psychological therapy, allowed for most patients to be treated without being institutionalized. The asylum eventually closed in 1993, but the state hospital continued to function in Athens, with some patients and staff relocating to a newly constructed facility, the Southeast Psychiatric Hospital. The hospital is now named Appalachian Behavioral Health Care. In 1993, the property was deeded to Ohio University in a land swap with the state's Department of Mental Health. Under the university's stewardship, the property was better maintained and repurposed and is now better known as the Ridges. A majority of buildings have been renovated and turned into classrooms and office buildings. The former hospital administration building is now the home of Kennedy Museum of Art. The nonprofit Dairy Barn Southeastern Ohio Cultural Arts Center is located in the old hospital's remodeled dairy barn and is privately owned and operated. The old tuberculosis ward, which was separated from the other buildings, was demolished by Ohio University in 2013 due to a large number of college students exploring the dangerous structure. It's been theorized that there are 1,930 people buried at the three cemeteries located at the Ridges. Of those, 700 women and 959 men lay under the headstones, marked only with a number. Among those are some 80 war veterans. Members of the Athens, Ohio chapter of the National Alliance on Mental Illness have worked to restore the three graveyards located on the grounds of the Ridges. School organizations provide tours of the facility around Halloween time each year. Halloween tours are not in themselves unusual in and around former asylums, especially with the horrors suffered by many of their residents. But there is more than patient atrocities when it comes to the Ridges. There are many who claim both the former asylum and the cemeteries are haunted. Perhaps part of the area having been the site of a Native American burial ground plays into that. And as some buildings remain empty, the general spookiness is palpable there. In one incident taking place in 1977, multiple personality rapist Billy Milligan was admitted there after committing multiple felonies including armed robbery and the rape of 3 Ohio State University students on campus. His attorneys argued that psychologists had diagnosed him with multiple personality disorder, from which the doctors said he had suffered from early childhood, and that one of his other personalities committed the crimes without his general awareness. Milligan was the first person diagnosed with multiple personality disorder to raise such a defense, and the first acquitted of a major crime for this reason. While at Athens, Milligan reported having 10 different personalities, with 14 more discovered during his residence. After a decade, Milligan was discharged. He died of cancer at a nursing home in Columbus, Ohio on December 12, 2014, at the age of 59. In 2021, Netflix released a 4-part documentary entitled Monsters Inside: The 24 Faces of Billy Milligan. 1 year after the incident, on December 1, 1978, the asylum was the subject of more distressing news when patient Margaret Schilling disappeared from her department. A thorough search for Margaret was conducted, and it ended when a caretaker found her decomposing body on the top floor of Building 20. She was found lying on her back, naked, with her arms crossed over her chest. She had removed her clothes, neatly folded them, and put them on a chair, perhaps as a symptom of hypothermia. According to the pathologist, Margaret died of cardiac arrest. In a bizarre twist, when her body was removed, It left an impression on the concrete floor, likely a combination of decomposition and the sunlight filtering through the windows. The stain has proved impossible to clean, even up to the present day. The main building is now named Lynn Hall and hosts music, geology, and biotechnology departments. There, reports of anomalous figures roaming the halls are not uncommon, nor are claims of disembodied voices and footsteps, with the occasional blood-curdling scream that unsettles even the staunchest skeptics.
Yeah, some of it. They used to have pads and stuff in there.
The basement is a foreboding place, with tales of patients being chained to the walls. Indeed, the sounds of change is another typical claim down there. On the top floor of Building 20, where her body was found, the ghost of Margaret Schilling has been seen looking out a window on many occasions, but her presence has been felt and sometimes even seen elsewhere in the building. Doors opening and closing by themselves is a standard assertion by students and administrators, as are the sounds of footsteps from otherwise unoccupied places. The feeling of being watched is a common claim in haunted locations, but at the ridges, those are often paired with seeing shadowy figures move about the various floors. One in particular is a man wearing a long black coat who has, for decades, frightened students in one of the men's bathrooms. During the time the buildings had been abandoned, the cemeteries were plagued by vandalism, and today shadowy figures and odd lights seem to dot its landscape. In one area, the shapes of the graves form a perfect circle, which is rumored to be a witch's meeting point. Local legends say that they made use of this circle for holding seances. The official Ohio University explanation is that the circle was created by some student pranksters several years ago, and perhaps that's true. When we talk about Wilson Hall, the line between truth and lore can get a little fuzzy, but the building and surrounding area are largely considered ground zero for past and ongoing paranormal activities. It is currently a student dormitory, and the goings-on there are the stuff of legends and nightmares. The West Green upon which it sits is home to many haunted buildings, and the presence of native burial grounds may certainly play into that, but it is also the epicenter of a strange configuration that many think attracts strange energies to it. Wilson Hall is apparently located in the middle of a mammoth pentagram that can be seen when the 5 cemeteries situated in the region are connected by lines. According to the pagan tradition, a pentagram might also create safe areas free from any paranormal activity, but Wilson is located in the dead center of the symbol. Some critics say that any 5 points can be united on a map in the form of a pentagram, which suggests that the interpretations of the pentagram are merely speculations. You can be your own judge. Wilson Hall has been said to lay claim to a ghost who came to be such by mysterious means in the 1970s. A student was said to have taken her own life in room 428, and for years after, students residing in that room claimed to hear strange sounds and footsteps, as well as witnessing multiple objects moving on their own. Eventually, the room was closed off and was not assigned to any students since, with school officials saying the room is uninhabitable. But legends can sometimes take a dazzling turn, and here is one instance where the lines blur. The story goes that the female student died in a violent manner in the room after dabbling in the occult. More specifically, she was using astral projection to travel outside her own body as well as the room itself. The student was also rumored to have repeatedly attempted to contact the dead and was involved in the practice of sorcery. Inside, an altar was seen by 2 graduate students, which was formed by covering a red desk with a sheet on which sat 2 candles. In reality, the student who set up the altar in the 4th floor room was Debbie Ralph Southaw, and she was interviewed by the Post newspaper some years after her own suicide is purported to have taken place. While she did request to be transferred into the single room on the fourth floor, Southall denied practicing witchcraft and said she only had a curiosity about the supernatural occurrences reported on the fourth floor, and that she had an interest in parapsychology and used the altar for meditation. Do you want ghosts, Debbie? Because that's how you get ghosts. Another possible explanation for supernatural occurrences is nearby Mount Nebo, on which a great deal of spiritual worship is known to have taken place, both in native culture and in the 19th and 20th centuries. 5½ acres of Mount Nebo were acquired in 1870 by Eli Curtis, who dedicated it to the Lord of Hosts to be used expressly for spiritual purposes and for a place to form a nucleus around which the city of the New Jerusalem is to be built in time. Joining him in his efforts were William D. Hall and Chauncey Barnes in creating the Morning Star community. Curtis said he was inspired to do this after a personal visit from Jesus. But the efforts to establish a New Jerusalem didn't last long after Barnes left Athens County. A tabernacle was in the building stages, but soon funds ran dry, leaving only the exterior standing. It was demolished by 1893. But none of that means the area does not have some sort of spiritual or psychic residue clinging to it. Spiritualists are certain that the geography of the area, with the peaks, mountains, and valleys, all make it conducive to psychic energy. In the early 1980s, a newspaper researched the property and discovered that Wilson Hall was built on the same footprint as the original site of an early cemetery of the Athens Mental Institute. So there's that to consider. So in conclusion, I say to all you graduates to go forward and challenge conventional wisdom. Don't settle for stories of campus cacodemons and fraternity phantasms. Seek the truth, always. But just in case, you might want to carry one of these in your backpacks. So for the final time, class of 2024, you are dismissed.